Hello, and welcome to this week's live Monday Music Motivation. I think this is going to be an interesting one, a little bit of a fun one. I have some fun stuff going on as well, so I think there's some good stuff to talk about today, and hopefully get you motivated and excited about your music and or clarinet journey. So the first thing is sort of what I want to be talking about today is our limiting beliefs. I think this is a term that probably most people are familiar with. I think it's a term that has been talked about a lot of places and is sort of popular in our culture today. But I think it's sometimes we forget to apply that idea of limiting beliefs to our clarinet playing and our music journey as well. And I think it's actually extremely relevant there too, because there's all kinds of areas in playing where I see students holding themselves back all the time. You see, the thing about playing the clarinet is there's all kinds of opportunities to be comparing yourselves to other people, comparing your progress to other people, comparing just how you sound to other people. But I think it's really easy to forget that those other people have probably gone through different things and done their own practice and their own work. And I think it's also really easy to get in this mindset of like it's right or it's wrong. And there's like the right way to play and the right way a piece should sound, and this sort of ideal outcome that we're striving for, this idea of sort of perfection, right? But I think we end up holding ourselves back in a lot of ways when we're trying to reach for that perfection, and we miss out on the whole picture. It's so easy to see somebody else and think, oh, they're really good at articulation and my articulation's terrible, so I'm clearly not as good as them. But what you might not notice is their technique isn't as good as yours, or their sound quality isn't as good as yours, or things like that. And there's all kinds of ways that when we're looking at other people, we just build up these limiting beliefs and hold ourselves back by thinking, I'm not as good as them, or noticing the things that you aren't as good at. And it's okay to not be as good at certain things as other people. There's always going to be somebody out there who's better than you, especially if you start looking at those nitty gritty things. There's always going to be somebody better at articulation, or better at technique, or better at sound quality, or better at dynamics. It's inevitable, especially when you look on that small scale. But we need to look at the bigger picture and find those opportunities for improvement, and keep working at it and developing for ourselves. So if you've ever said anything like the following things that I've heard from my students, then I want you to sort of question those and ask yourself, is that really true? Or is that just something that I've at one point compared or heard or thought and just sort of assumed it to be true? So one is, playing the clarinet is complicated. This one's very common, where we think, oh, there's just so much stuff going on and so much to keep track of. I'm just not coordinated enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not talented enough to keep track of all of that stuff. And this is such a common one, but it's honestly just not true. Also, yes, there's a lot of stuff going on when you're playing, but none of it's really complicated. We just blow at the reed, hold our mouth in a certain shape, wiggle our tongue a little bit, wiggle the fingers a little bit. The clarinet's not that complicated of an instrument. And if you're playing any other instrument, it's also not that complicated. I am probably biased, but I might argue that clarinet is one of the more complicated instruments because it overblows a 12th and like theoretically shouldn't work because of the physics of it. So that adds some complications, but there's all the other instruments have their things too. The bassoons have like 5,000 things that they have to play with just two thumbs, which is crazy. Intonation on string instruments, playing multiple notes on piano. Like every instrument has its excuses and those ways that you can be like, oh, but I have to do this with my thumbs on bassoon. Like this is impossible. This is so hard. But thinking that way is only limiting yourself. It's absolutely possible when you see those other people that you've been comparing yourself to and think, oh my gosh, they're so good at this, I could never do that. That's not true. if they can do it, you can do it. And that's kind of the goal of today, and what I wanted to sort of tell you is that everything is possible. Stop holding yourself back with those limiting beliefs. If somebody else can do it, that doesn't mean that you suck. It means that you also can do that with the right practice and the right training and the right mindset going into it. So that's one limiting belief. Let's see if I can come up with any other good ones off the top of my head. Music is hard and complicated. I'm not coordinated enough for rhythm. That's one I've been talking a ton about lately. Let's see. I'm tone deaf. That's one that I'm dealing with personally. I'm definitely not tone deaf, but I've always struggled with like aural skills, especially with the pitch side of things. Rhythm's good, but pitch is a bit of a struggle for me. And I realized that it's just because I've never thought a lot about pitch, and it's not something I'm just bad at pitch. It's just that I don't work on it very much, and it's an opportunity for improvement. So that's a way that it's shifting for myself as well. And I want to add just one more little connected point here, which is that all of these things, all of these areas where you're being limited can sort of come down to 3 categories. And those 3 categories of things that if you can just get a little more clarity or a little more honesty with those things, then you're going to break through those limiting beliefs and start moving forward on your journey. So what those things are is the success formula. So I've talked about the success formula a lot. It's the idea of like, get clarity on what you want, get honest about where you are, and then the path to move from where you are to where you want becomes clear. So the limiting beliefs are in those areas of like, oh my gosh, that's how Martin Frost sounds. I could never do that. That's a limiting belief on the goal. If you remove that limiting belief and instead of thinking like, Martin Frost is so good, so I can never, and instead think, well, if Martin Frost can do it, then I can do it too. See it as an opportunity. Then that gives you clarity on sort of what you want and how you actually want to sound and what you want to achieve and where you want to be. And then it's easier to know where you're going. Same thing with the honesty side. It's so easy to listen to a recording of yourself and be like, oh my gosh, all these things are bad and don't sound good and just, I can't articulate well, I can't phrase well, my rhythm's terrible, I can't even play the right notes, the notes are going too fast. You can just, limiting belief after limiting belief can stack up and pile on when you're sort of in that honest reflection. But again, if we shift it from limited, I can't, to, first of all, it's not you. It's not a value statement on I can't articulate well. It's that recording. In that recording, my articulation wasn't good. Then we can shift that a little bit to, again, it's not an inherent flaw in you. It's something that wasn't great in that recording. So now it's an opportunity for improvement for the next recording. So anytime you find yourself thinking, I'm not good enough, or it's you. First of all, it's not you. It's that particular performance, that particular recording, that particular playthrough in your practice session. Second, it's not an inherent trait that you can never change. That's where the limiting beliefs, I think, really come in, is when you start thinking like, this is it. This is how I sound. This is how I'm always going to sound. I'm never going to improve. That's that sort of fixed mindset where you're never going to improve. If you think that that's truly where you're at, you need to shift that to the growth mindset of, okay, this is where I'm at. Now, where do I want to be? Now, how do I get there? So basically, it all comes back down to the success formula. Pretty much all of my teaching is success formula and more air. That's all you need to know about me. But I'm going to keep going live every Monday with different little angles and spins on that to help keep you motivated to practice. So that's my big thing for today. Hopefully you have some ideas. And if you want to take a second after this to reflect on what some of your limiting beliefs might be and ask yourself, okay, where am I having problems? Is it in when I listen to myself? I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Is it when I'm looking at other people thinking like, oh my gosh, I can never be like them? Or it could be somewhere along the process too of like, this is just going to take decades of work, so I'm never going to make it, so it's not worth it. maybe you can actually just enjoy a little bit of work each day, and you'll be really surprised at how much you accomplish in a year. But that's enough rambling about motivation. Now let's actually get to work. So get out your templates, fill out your templates, and you can do this a little bit in your reflecting and things here. So this is mine for the week. Again, there's a link in the description, quickstartclarinet.com/get started to download this specific template or just recreate it for yourself. Date for the week, reflection on how things are going, your goal for this next week, and your plan for when and what you're actually going to do. And you can see mine is very simple, but it's very effective because it just helps me sort of get organized, put something in my calendar so I know when I'm practicing and know what I'm practicing and what I want to accomplish this week. Then I accomplish something else next week and accomplish something else next week. And next thing you know, I've accomplished a whole lot of stuff by the end of the year or the end of 5 years or the end of 10 years. And it's a whole different ballgame. So fill out your template. And as you're reflecting on that, you might consider what are some of those limiting beliefs? What are some of those things that you want to be working on and growing at? For me personally, I think I need more clarity on the end goal. I think in the excerpts that I've been working on, I've made it to a point where the clarinet playing is pretty good. Getting honest with where I'm at, like I think I'm doing what I want, which is great. That's really important. Now I have the freedom to really go for anything that I want. Now that I have the skills and capabilities on the instrument to play really, really well, now I can decide like, how much dynamic contrast do I want to put into this piece? Not just, oh, it's not enough dynamics, I need to do more. It's actually a really clear decision on like, is this a more sort of stable excerpt or is there more wild contrast in this one? What's the sound quality I want? What's exactly the character of the music that I'm going for? How is the actual pacing of all of these tempo changes and fluctuations really getting it dialed in? So that's where I think before I would be held back by, I just need to play the right notes and play the clarinet. Now I've started to tackle that and I'm no longer feeling limited about my clarinet playing. Now I can find the opportunities in the music and find the opportunities to make the clarinet playing better always too. So that's sort of how I'm unlocking myself and taking away those limits in my own playing and not holding myself back anymore. I encourage you to give that a try with something that you're working on and just be aware. That's all it takes, is just a little awareness. Next time you're thinking like, oh, I'm never going to get this. This is way too hard. It's not that hard. If Martin Frost can do it, you can do it. Just use that as inspiration rather than as a limit on yourself. And good luck in your practicing this week. And right when I'm done, right now, fill out your template so that you have a plan of action for this week and can implement some of this motivation that we got going here. So thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next week on the next live Monday Music Motivation.